Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, the tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. We've got a real adventurer here with us today. We've got Trish Sare. Trish is the founder and owner of BikeHike Adventures. Trish, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jason. Happy to be here.
Well, it's going to be a real pleasure. You and I spoke one other time, and I just thought, wow, it's pretty interesting what you've got going on. And I thought we needed to come back and actually record a conversation. So here we are. Let's start with, right before I push record, I asked you just to clarify that your company name is one word, Bike Hike. And you thought, you know what? People get confused about that. So let's discuss that. What was behind the naming of the word? Because I suspect there's more than just the fact that it's one word.
Well, it's a good question, actually. So we started 32 years ago before the internet. And I was trying to figure out a name. And in those days, the phone book was important. So I wanted a name that was in the front of the phone book.
Mm-hmm.
And also, because we started doing multi-sport adventures all over the world, I thought, well, I actually, sorry, because there was no internet, I picked the domain bikehike.com. And then I still didn't even have a company name yet. And then I thought, bike hike is kind of punchy, even though I would do more than just biking and hiking. So it became Bike Hike Adventures, and bike hike being one word.
Very,
everyone
very cool.
Gets it wrong.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to mention it, because being a podcast, anybody listening to this, I think if you just go to Google and type in bike and hike with 2 different words, who knows what you're going to get. So at least it narrows that down a little bit. And let's do this as well, because we're going to get into your background, figure out how you got where you were to where you are now. But let's give our listeners the 30-second, 60-second elevator pitch. You kind of already touched on some of it, but what does Bike Hike do, and what should our listeners know about it right off the bat?
We are an active experience adventure travel company. So we take North Americans and people from all over the world, really, outside of their countries into other places, and they're doing active adventures. So biking, hiking, rafting, integrating with the local people and experiencing their cultures, their food, their countries from a local perspective, not from a touristy perspective.
I love that. And is this mostly, do you do group departures that people can book into, or are you doing kind of what we call the FIT, or for the individual traveler, where you're putting together a trip for small groups, or what does that usually look like?
So we used to be primarily set departures where people could join in, but I will say, especially since the pandemic, most people right now want their own departures. So we're doing a lot of custom trips for small groups. People are coming to us and saying, I love this trip, but I want my own dates, and I want my own group, and I want 5-star instead of 4, and I maybe want an e-bike instead of a regular bike. So a lot of custom, but also still some set departures that people can join into. And we're going to be launching self-guided next year.
Okay. I guess my first question is, why, from your perspective, why do you think that people shifted away from the group set departures more to the private departures? You mentioned specifically COVID. What do you think it was that caused that shift for you?
I think personally that everybody nowadays is so used to having what they want at like whenever they want it. And a lot of people are so oversubscribed in their lives that it's so hard to get everyone on the same page, so that this is the date they have, and this is when their kids are in school or whatever. So, and they specifically want, maybe their focus is food, They don't want to be with a group of other people who might not have the same needs as they do. But I think the date is a really big part of it.
That makes a lot of sense because I mean, obviously things just are they're changing over time, and maybe COVID taught us like, hey, life is short. You never know what you can do. And I want to go, and I'm not going to wait around for somebody else to want to go on the same dates. It's like, I'm going to go when I want to go. And also, just maybe they just value that opportunity to travel more. So they're like, okay, I'll spend a little bit more to do a private departure, maybe than joining a group. And I'm not going to, I don't know. That makes sense.
I also think that as like because we've been around for 32 years, our travelers are aging with us. So more retirees are traveling with us now, and they want to have their friends with them. They want to have a life experience with their friends or their family. We do a lot of multi-generational trips. So yeah, and they specifically know what they want.
That's a really good point. And I suspect that maybe if someone started out 30 years ago going on your group trips, they've probably been to five, six, seven, maybe more places, maybe with your groups. So two things have happened. One is they've just traveled more. So they're probably a little bit more comfortable traveling than they were when they started. And number two, they're more comfortable with you
Mhm.
because they're like, okay, look, Trish and her team, they've nailed this five or six times in a row. So I don't need that certainty of knowing I've got other people there to commiserate with if things don't go well, and they're not worried about it. So like, Trish, you did such a great job on these others. Maybe you can set up something special for us. That is that kind of what you've seen?
Absolutely. And one of the things we hear a lot from our travelers is that what they love about our trips is it's specifically our guides. Our guides become like dear friends to them that are taking them and showing them their countries passionately. One of our special guides is Jorgen. He does all of our Ecuador, Galapagos, and Bolivia trips, and people follow him. They tell us that he knows everybody. He knows all the locals. He gets them into the country so they don't feel like tourists. They feel like locals, and they love that. So they
It's
come back again and again and again. We've got travelers who have been with us 15 times.
wow, wow,
Yeah. From day
that's
one.
it's very cool. On your group departures, do you usually have like someone like yourself or someone on your team go to lead the trip, or has
No,
that
we have
changed? Or
local. Yeah, I personally lead one special departure every year, always an inaugural trip. And I have a following who join those trips. But other trips, it's a local guide, and we specifically want a local guide because the locals know the destinations better than anyone else. And it's also our commitment to sustainable travel. We're not bringing people from overseas into other places.
that don't need to be there?
Yeah, it just raises the trip price, and it also takes work away from one of the locals.
Let me ask you this in your experience though, because I'm guessing the inaugural trips that you do are kind of like maybe it's the first time you've got we're going to call it a scouting trip, and they're going with you on a scouting trip, right?
Mhm.
But those are people that have traveled with you before, presumably. Do you have some people? I hear what you're saying about we've got a group departure. We're sending, it's in Ecuador. It's a Galapagos trip, and we've got a local. I missed his name. I should. Jorgen. Okay, so you've got Jorgen's going to be there with you for 10 days, 11 nights, whatever. And but do you get some that feel have you I'm trying to think how to ask this question, but do you feel that some travelers are just a lot more comfortable and confident when they have somebody from the US going along, even though that person from the US maybe isn't even adding any value other than something? I don't know. Has that come up? Have you worked through that, or did you make this decision early on not to worry about that?
We made this decision earlier on not to worry about that, and our guides are so well loved. Actually, Jorgen is a Swede who lives in
I
Ecuador.
was, I was wondering because I'm actually in Ecuador right now. I've been here the last 4 months, and I've met quite a few people, and nobody by that name. So I think that's part
Yeah.
of why I tripped
And
on it.
he's a local. He's a Swede who's been living in Ecuador for 30 years. He's married to an Ecuadorian. He has Ecuadorian kids, and he's more passionate about the Ecuadorian culture than he is about the Swedish culture. So he is a local, but he also understands Western needs, which is really important for us.
Well, and yes, and presumably, I guess you call him a local by choice.
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to local by chance. I mean, there's a lot of great locals here in Ecuador. There's a lot of great locals everywhere. But sometimes when you've got that person that made a choice at some point to go to a place or made the choice to stay, they're super passionate about it. They're there because they want to be
Absolutely.
there. And during the course of those 30 years of him exploring and finding new places, that's an important skill or an important experience that he brings to the table because he knows that he wants to explore. He wants to find things as opposed to maybe some people that have lived here their whole lives. They just kind of take things for granted, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, just on and on that note, a lot of these guides in all of our destinations have been with us for 20, 30 years. So as we add a new destination, Jorgen has been guiding trips for us for at least 22 years.
Wow.
And that's pretty common. So they're part of our family. And
Hmm.
a lot of people will say, I want to do a trip with Jorgen. We hear that all the time. So they'll follow their leader, which is
Right.
wonderful.
I'm curious, and I suspect this depends on the group dynamics and also the guide and your relationship with the guide. But let's say you've got a group arriving on, I don't know, June 1st, and they're going to be with Jorgen for 2 weeks. Do you have an opportunity to communicate with the guests or Jorgen, or is it just like once they land, you know they're in great hands and there's no need for you to get involved? Or do you do the daily check-ins? Is he telling you the crazy things that the clients are asking for, or or any of that stuff? I'm just curious.
We will always have WhatsApp calls with the guides throughout the trips. We won't necessarily have WhatsApp calls with the group. We just had one in Bolivia because they had trouble getting there. And then I stayed on the WhatsApp group with them that with their guide with Jorgen. So I was following what was going on with the group the whole time. But normally no. They're in amazing hands when they're there, so I don't have to check in all the time. We check in once they get home.
Right. Right. Very, very cool. Approximately how much? Well, I know you've got a mix of the set group departures and then a mix of the private. Give us kind of an idea of like where most of your trips going. Just, I don't know. I'm not going to ask you how many groups, how many departures, because if you're like me, I'm like, I don't know. I'd have to go check that because I can't keep it. I don't know. Maybe you can keep it straight better than I can. But just trying to get kind of an idea of where are you sending most of your clients and what are you excited about? Like what new trips you're going to be adding?
So, where we travel completely changes on the year. Every year has been different in the entire time that we've been operating. So, it depends on, I think, what are the trending destinations right now. And so, currently, Slovenia is one of our biggest. Slovenia, Croatia have been so hot for so long. Let's see, Chile. Patagonia is always big. Costa Rica is still, it was our bread and butter for so many years. And now it's slowed down a little bit, but we've always got quite a few groups going there. And then I will say this year, well, Ecuador Galapagos have always been popular for
Hmm.
us, always.
Hmm.
Yeah. And what's new and exciting and what are we looking forward to? I'm really looking forward to I really really want to see the gorillas in my lifetime. And
Oh, yeah.
when I want to add when I'm passionate about where I want to go, I want to add a destination to do that.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
will be
and your clients will pick up on that passion and it feeds itself, right? Because sometimes when we look at product development as a tour operator like your business, it's what's hot, what's trending, where's the demand? But I sense you're a little bit more like me. It's kind of more like, well, where do I want to go? What am I excited about? And I suspect when you named off quite a few of those places, it wasn't necessarily 100% based on market research as much as just I'm interested in it. And if I'm interested, then, you know, actually, I had a hot air balloon ride business for a while and in Arizona, and we used to fly in a much different area than where the other balloons would fly. And I just always felt like, and that was my choice because it was just a more interesting place. And I just always felt that if I'm excited about what I'm doing, my guests are going to be excited. They're going to pick up on the energy. And pretty much every time I second guessed myself and I went and kind of followed the rest of the pack and I wasn't very excited about it. I was always, at the end of that tour, I was like, oh yeah, I should have, should have trusted myself. So I suspect you've got some of that as well.
although we do have to develop destinations and trips as well as we're seeing maybe with an aging demographic, for example, we might have to be more soft in some areas. So, not as many camping trips. Actually, camping, people don't even like camping anymore. They want to be in, they want a they want to be active by day, comfort by night with food and wine and culture. That's what
Does
we're
the does the
saying.
glamping, the term glamping, fit into any of, and that, I mean, glamping could be a safari camp in Africa with tents, but they're pretty luxurious.
They're pretty luxurious. Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely do have glamping, and we still do that in quite a few destinations. Patagonia. We're adding Botswana and Zimbabwe right now, and South Africa, and they will have that as well. And we have a little bit of it in Costa Rica as well.
Okay, so somebody who's has no interest in biking per se,
Hmm.
no real interest in hiking. They hear the name of your company, Bike Hike. Yeah, I don't like either one of those things. You mentioned there's other things. You also mentioned active, but somebody that really, and I guess I'm bringing this up because you mentioned we've got an aging clientele. Could somebody find a trip with you guys that really doesn't require any physical exertion?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked that question because a lot of people just think we're a biking company because they hear bike hike,
Hmm.
which, as much as it's been a great name, in some ways it's been limiting because we do so many other things. We have started a lot of classic itineraries, which are doing, maybe it might even just have like a half day bike in it, but it'll be a cooking class and going to some of the major places that they may want to see. Like in Morocco would be a perfect example of what we're doing. We're going to Fez, Marrakesh, Rabat, some of the main areas with it, like seeing the historical things, and then adding in a cooking class and a wine experience, or maybe not wine in Morocco, but like the local experiences.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Has the food and, I'm going to say the food and wine part of it, become significantly, well, you tell me, over the last 30 or so years, what has the shift been around the culinary type of stuff? Because I see it seems like it's become a lot more important, but I'm curious in your business if it has, number one, and number two, is that because of an aging demographic or maybe more sophisticated demographic is what I should, maybe the way I should say that. What do you think?
I just kind of lost you a little bit in there, but I think I got the question.
Yeah, yeah. It was just as far as the culinary stuff. Has that, number one, has that changed dramatically over the last 30 so years? And I guess number two is, why do you think that is?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, you were cutting out. That's why. What happened? Yeah, we've definitely changed. I think one of the reasons is maybe the aging population. I think the trips are not as rugged as they used to be in the earlier days in some of the destinations. We're doing a lot more in Europe as well than we used to. When we started, we did a lot of South and Central America. That was our mainstay. Whereas in Europe, food and wine is our
Mhm.
and olive oil tastings, and they're big parts of the culture. And I also think that the food tourism industry has really grown over the years, even among the younger demographics. I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's been like food tours as a 1 day tour in a city is a really big thing now. Even
yeah,
food walking, food tours, wine food tours.
yeah. I agree, and you can see it in the media. You can go on YouTube or and the social networks, Instagram, what are people taking pictures of their food? It's kind of become important, I guess. You know what? We're gonna come back and discuss kind of what you're doing and the experiences for your clients and stuff. But I think it would be a failure on my part if we didn't figure out, Trish, how the heck did you get into this and what were you doing before this? And I don't know how far we need to go back to get a feel for that. You want to go all the way back to your childhood, or how far should we go back to understand this?
I'll go back to my childhood first. First of all, I grew up in a family that we didn't travel. We had a cottage, so I'd never been on a plane. My mother passed away when I was 17, and she wanted to travel the world, but she didn't have the chance. And before she died, she said to me, "Go see the world today because you never know what tomorrow holds." And I was a very, very shy kid. I was attached to my mom. And I just got this strength in me. I don't even know where it came from, that I decided I was going on a solo 5-year trip to work my way around the world. And off I went, starting with Vancouver because I was from Toronto,
Hmm.
and I started working at Expo 86, and which is the World's Fair, and I met all these amazing people who were traveling. And then I didn't have a plan of where I was going. It was sort of, my line was, wherever the wind blows me, I'm going to go. And then after
Let
5
me
years,
ask you this. Let me ask you this real quick, because what you shared about your mom, that could influence people to do a wide variety of things. I'm curious, when you made the decision to go do this 5-year journey, was it really because you'd already wanted to and were dreaming about it? Or was there some of, well, I'm going to do this for my mom. I don't even necessarily want to travel, but she thinks I should, so I'm going to go do it. I'm just curious. Is it somewhere in between?
that's an interesting question as well, because I always had my nose in the travel section of the newspaper when I was growing up, even though I'd never been on a plane before. And I don't know where that came from. But I think the big part of it was, this was for my mom. And I don't think I realized that when I left. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that trip was really for her. But
I'm
it
sure.
really shaped my life. It changed my whole trajectory of my life. I grew up in suburbia.
Mhm.
So, and then all of a sudden the world was my oyster. In those days, there was no guidebooks. There was like, it was a really different time to travel, which was a blessing, such a blessing.
It is, because there's just so many more opportunities for surprises. Sometimes good, sometimes maybe not so pleasant at the time. But when you're walking around with an iPhone in your pocket and you've got everything at your fingertips and you almost can't get lost, it's a totally different experience. And I mean, I find myself like, I'll be out with friends and we're going to go try and find some place on the other side of the city or something. And they've got their phones out the whole way, trying to find, oh, they got to Google the restaurant. They got to figure all this stuff out. And I'm just like, I don't even want to look at my phone because I know I'm going to have so much more fun if I just ask people on the street in my broken Spanish, and I'll end up somewhere totally
Absolutely.
different probably than where I would have went. But it's so much better, right?
Absolutely. And actually, on that note, like in those days when I was traveling, I had to send my father a telegram
Wow.
so that he had news about me. I remember when the first fax machine came out, and I was working for a tour operator in Canada, and I was a guide in Costa Rica. And I sent a fax, and I remember thinking, oh my God, they're getting my words right now. Like I'm sending
Isn't
it and
that
they're
cool?
getting a lot. And those were
Wow.
special days, very, very
Hmm.
special days.
Hmm.
Countries were still so deeply authentic, which I loved. They hadn't
How do you
changed.
How do you balance that out? Because I can tell just from having this conversation with you, you're very similar to me in a lot of ways. Like you kind of like that, or I'll speak for myself. I like the unknown. I like the surprises. Most, probably 80% of the really cool experiences that I've had traveling were really unplanned or happened because I was walking down the street and I looked down a side street and I thought, oh, what's that group of people down there? I should go check that out. Everything they tell you not to do on the State Department website, basically. And I found so many cool things that way. So I guess my question is, how do you balance that with that's the spontaneity and all the wonderful things that come out of spontaneity, but then balance that with clients don't necessarily want to have a lot of uncertainty and spontaneity when they're traveling, especially when they've paid you to organize things or they've got a guide. So I don't know. What do you think? I don't know what
I
my
would,
question is.
I would say that we'll have a set departure, like a set itinerary that they'll follow.
Hmm.
But every single day in that itinerary, it could be open to, you know, like I'll use Vietnam as an example, and our guide Wa in Vietnam. He's amazing. Everybody loves Wa. We'll going down the street and we'll stumble upon a local guy who is working in the field, and we'll stop and we'll talk to the local guy, and he might actually invite us into his home. So it's those kind of things that happen organically along the way. Or maybe we'll be in a market and the guide Like I remember when we used to run Venezuela trips, the guide loved to give people opportunities if they wanted to try the interesting things that you can find in the market, like cow's eyeballs, which I would never take, but some might. Yeah.
Yep. And probably having guides that are maybe have the emotional intelligence to be able to step off the itinerary for a moment when the opportunity presents itself. Because if you take someone that's too structured and you make them a guide, say, look, you're supposed to be here from this time to this time, talking about, the whatever, the how they cultivate rice in the fields. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But and they've got this set routine, and it's like, okay, this is what you need to do. You're going to get that type of experience where if you've got maybe,
Mhm.
I don't know if they need to be an older guide, but maybe maybe a little bit maturity and a little bit more ability to say, I know Trish said we needed to do this to this, but here's a special opportunity that I cannot create. I cannot manufacture this. So we're going to go do this special experience. And even if it means that maybe we skip on something later in the day. Um, so that's just, do you think? I mean, because I know there's other tour operators and there's guides that listen to this, and I guess I'm bringing this up because I want to encourage them to get outside the box, right?
Yeah, that is one of the key factors that makes a really good guide. Number one, to be able to number one, read the group. Because if you're finding that your group has specific needs, then you might want to steer it to a certain way. So, but I'd say that one of the factors about our travelers, we're an adventure travel company.
Hmm.
People want to, like, they really want to experience the country. I have been with guides like you're talking about, and I've had to have conversations with them to say, are you watching the eyes of the travelers behind their sunglasses? They're falling asleep to your long historical discussion, which might be right for some travelers, but not for bike hike travelers. We're active travelers, and I can see they're falling asleep behind their eyeglasses. So it's really, yeah, that like our specific travelers travel with us because they want to be immersed. So they love that.
Hmm.
And that's how we choose our guides, to be able to do that. And they are mature. Our guides are mostly, I would say, because they've been with us for so long, 40s.
Yep. Yep. And it's not a knock on younger guides at all, because I don't think it necessarily, is dependent on age, but sometimes, yeah, the younger guides kind of aren't able to kind of read the room. I think you said that, is kind of read the room and judge the looks, because how big are the groups usually?
Our max is 12,
Okay.
but
So small
we'll
groups.
small groups. We've gone up to 16, to be honest. We don't like to go up to 16 because 16, going into an area with 16 bikers or hikers and guides and drivers, you're making huge impact into that place. And that's not what we want to do. We want to be about small groups. So they can be anywhere from 4 people to 12 people max. And I'd
Right.
say more on average is 8.
Because it's hard to get invited into some family's home or to their picnic or to all those spontaneous things. The bigger the group, and it's not like twice as difficult, it's like 5 times more difficult. The difference between a group of 8 and a group of 6 is not twice as difficult when it comes to having those authentic experiences. It just
Absolutely.
completely rules. Some things are just completely off the table. All right, I need to hear how you got from Vancouver to Costa Rica. I'm sure some things happened in between.
Yeah, so well, that 5-year trip, I wanted to make it around the world. I didn't end up making it around the world. I ended up, because I decided if I like a place, I'm going to stay and really
Yeah.
integrate with the locals. So I did the Pacific and Asia on
Hmm.
that trip.
Hmm.
And I ended up staying 2 years in Thailand, actually,
Yeah.
which is a story. There's a story behind that, but I won't go into it. But then I came back to Canada
Wait a
and
minute. Why you're on a podcast to share stories? Tell us,
all right, the
where is
Thailand
this?
trip.
Tell us about Thailand.
The Thailand trip is a big factor as to why bike hike exists, actually,
And
because,
you were just going to skip right over it? We're not going to go into that. What happened?
well, so because when my mom died, I was on a mission. I was traveling the world for 5 years, and nobody was going to get in my way. And I wasn't going to let a guy, I didn't want to have a relationship or anything get in my way. But I ended up meeting a guy in Thailand, a Thai guy, and I ended up staying, and I lived in Thailand with him for 2 years. And I lived on an island that had no tourists besides myself. I wasn't a tourist, I was a local at that point. I was absolutely integrated into their culture. And it was hard, but it was fascinating at the same time. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life there though, but I just decided it's just too different for me. But it really, when I left Thailand, I really wanted to show people, especially like where I'd come from, everybody was living a life in their little box. I don't want to say in their little box, but this is what they knew.
Hmm.
And there was so much more out there in the world. And I really wanted to show people that not everybody lives the same way that we do in Canada. And yeah, so it was fascinating. I stayed 2 years. And when I came back from that trip, I thought, okay, what am I going to do with my life now? What I know is travel. So
I think I gotta ask you this first, Trish. What did your dad think? Your mom passes away. You're like, I'm gonna go travel for mom. I'm gonna take her with me on this journey, and you're sending him telegrams.
telegrams.
Telegrams. That's a different thing, isn't it? Telegraph was a little earlier, and you're like, Dad, I fell in love with a Thai guy, and I think I'm gonna stick around here for a while. Did you send him that telegram, or did you just drop off the
I
face of the earth for a
actually
while?
I actually made it actually a little even worse because I
Jeez.
came home for a little bit and I said, I'm going to work for a little while and make as much money as I can and move back there for the rest of my life. And he cried. He cried. He told me that, I don't have to do this. It's a big move and it's the other side of the world. And my father was from Malta, and
Hmm.
he immigrated at a very young age, so he knew what it was like to go to a new land without his family, but he didn't want me to go.
Oh, well, I can get that. Did he, and I don't know the whole situation, we don't need to go in too deep into it, but was it a situation where he could or would visit you in Thailand? Would that help? Did that help? Or was it just,
He could have, but my father was not a traveler at all.
okay, despite being an immigrant himself from Malta?
He never
Okay.
ever went back to Malta, and he actually never got on a plane.
Okay, wow. Yeah, so I can imagine that was kind of, what about siblings? Do you have other siblings?
I have two siblings, one older, one younger, and they're both in Canada.
So were they better kids for your dad? Did they did they give him as much angst and torture as you did, or
No, one of them was got married and had kids and stayed in Toronto.
it stayed in
And the other
Toronto? Okay, so she's the favorite one. Just kidding.
I was actually the younger one decided to come and join me for a little while on my
Oh, cool.
travels. So she came with me for maybe a year of travel, but the other one led a very different life than me. We're very close. Our lives were very different.
So I suspect, I'm curious kind of what your thoughts are. I've definitely experienced it. I've always had the wanderlust thing going on. And actually I read recently that there's a psychiatric diagnosis in the diagnostic manual for mental health. I don't know. But there's like a diagnosis, and I can't remember the word, but it's basically wanderlust, where you put your desire
Interesting.
to travel and explore ahead of other things. If it, like any addiction, if it gets in the way of you having a normal life, then it's an addiction. I think travel definitely has been that for me. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you, now that I mean, you're working in tourism, so you're around other people, you presumably go to some of these conferences, you work with other tour operators, but has it been difficult for you to kind of fit in to maybe social groups or to make friends with people that don't travel, or are you able to move back and forth between the two?
I can move back and forth between the two. And that actually brings up a little story that I have to share with you. Because after the 5 years, and I came back to Toronto, and everybody was still having the same conversations that I had when I left. And it was really hard for me. It was so hard to, I just felt like I didn't fit in. And I remember meeting this man who was probably, I bet he was in his 50s at that point. I was in my 20s. And he was biking around the world, and he kind of looked a little bit like a lost soul. And he had written a book about his travels, traveling around the world on his bike. And I said to him, I need advice. Do I keep going because it's so boring here? Or do I just stop, make routes, and, still travel, but in a different way? And he looked at me and he said, I think you should stop and make routes. Otherwise, you're going to end up like me. And I've never forgotten him. So I did. I made routes in Toronto again for a little while. And then I started a travel company. And with that, I could still travel, but I still had life at home. So I felt like I had the best of both worlds. And I had friends who I'd met who were in the travel industry, but I also had friends who weren't in the travel industry, and I feel like I got the good balance of both.
Yeah,
And
I
now
can.
a lot of my friends are all over the world. So wherever I go, I have friends all over the world, as well as I
That's
have friends here.
it's very cool because I think, like you mentioned, that he had told you if you don't set some sort of roots, you're going to be like me. And honestly, when I heard you say that, I was looking at myself in the screen thinking, I probably look just like that guy because I'm 51. Everything I own is in my suitcase. But I've done the, I did set some roots for a while as well. And what I was going to say there is, I think finding that mix is important for people that are listening to this and maybe at a different stage in their lives because I had had roots for a while and worked in the tourism industry, so I was still traveling, so I was able to get that. And boy, I stepped out of tourism for a few years for some relationship reasons because just to try and be responsible, and did real estate for a few years, and it was horrible. It was really really tough because then you're not traveling, you're not connected with that community. You've got the roots, and it was like a huge void in my life. So now that I'm back in it, and it's changed quite a bit. But what do you? I'm not gonna. Before we push the record button, you said, Jason, please don't ask me what my three-step strategy is for the next 10, 15, 20 years. I'm not going to ask you that. But what are you excited about? Like right now, I mean, you mentioned some of the tours and stuff, but
What do I
that's not
want
a
to do?
strategy. That's not a strategy question. What are you excited about? You going to stay in Toronto? You going to travel
I'm in
more or less?
Vancouver. I've been in
You're in
Vancouver
Vancouver now. That's right. Okay.
for
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep.
23 years.
I was paying attention.
Um, That's okay. Yeah, 23 years. I still want to travel. Travel will always be a part of my life, but I don't think I want to travel as much as I've been traveling. I want
Mhm.
to also do other things in my life as well. Like there's so many beautiful things to experience. Right now, I'm being very, very drawn to animals.
Okay.
And
Tell me
I,
more about that.
I just
What does
have
that mean?
this. So this started in the pandemic. Well,
Hmm.
I've always loved animals, always loved animals. But in the pandemic, when it was really the international travel industry was very hard hit in the pandemic, and
Yeah, that was a
you know,
tough
it
time.
was a very tough time. And I had to find other kinds of income sources as well to just keep us going. And I ended up becoming an animal sitter. And I have this like there's something that I feel like I can communicate with animals when I'm with them. And
Hmm.
everybody says to me, my animals usually hide when they meet people, but when they see you, they just stare at me. So I'll tell you one thing, when I go traveling the world, I always bring bags of cat food with me to places and dog food to places where I know it's going to be like the animals are suffering,
Which is a lot of places.
which is a lot of places, a
Yeah.
lot of places. And
Yep.
it's heart wrenching for me. So I'm excited to do something with animals. I'm not quite sure what it'll be yet, but it still may involve travel. At one point, I thought I wanted to have a rescue, but I think a rescue there's a lot of red tape and there's a lot of hardships in a rescue. And I
Yeah.
know some people who are doing it. So I don't know if that's going to be what it is, but I'll always have my hands in travel of some sort.
Do you have pets at the house?
Not anymore. I always did. And then my 18-year-old cat died. Since then, I've been a sitter, and that's been the best because I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about finding a sitter. I
Yeah.
actually get
Yeah.
paid. I
Uh-huh.
bike to people's homes, which so I'm still doing my
Uh-huh.
activities, and then I'm being paid for taking care of their animals, and I'm getting the love. I love it.
Do you think it's kind of like being a grandparent where you can get that time with kids, but
Absolutely.
then you give them back and it's you can decide whether you're available or not, where when you're a parent, you don't have that choice. Let's touch on this because I'm curious if you have, I think it's called Trusted House Sitters, and there's probably a few other groups out there. And I've spoken with travelers. I've been traveling full time for 4 years, and I've spoken with travelers that that's how they travel. They go, they'll find one in Costa Rica and they'll go there for a month, and then they'll find one in Panama. So I'd love for you to share any insights or thoughts you have around that. Like, how could somebody incorporate that into their lifestyle and help finance their travels?
So I personally haven't tried those sites. I know people who do. But I believe I mean I feel blessed that I know a lot of people all over the world who
Yeah.
say to me that, "Hey, I'm going away. I've got a friend in Denver who travels a lot, and she's got two dogs, so she's always saying, if anyone wants to come and stay at my place and watch my dog while I'm away, so look to people you may know overseas who have pets and find out what their vacations are. But those sites, trusted house sitters, I'm sure are very good. Or pet sit. I think there's a pet sitting one. I'm not sure what it is. I know a site like Rover that would be different because I think that's more local. But that's definitely a good way if you're okay to stay in the same place and don't want to travel around because you're going to be needing to take care of an animal.
You got to be there at least once a day, at least probably.
And if it's a dog, all day.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. My mother has a couple dogs, and I talked to her a lot about, hey, Mom, there's websites, there's ways you can meet people that they can come watch your dogs. And she's like, well, I don't know them. And she's always had a lot of concern because her dogs are very important to her. And now I've got someone sitting with me that looks and seems very trustworthy. And I want to have my mom listen to this episode. So, what do you say to people out there that are really kind of limiting their ability to travel or their ability to even leave their house sometimes because they don't know how to find somebody to help with their dogs, or because they've got that concern? You've got more expertise than I do, and I want to share this episode with her.
Okay, so there are
No
there are
pressure.
there are websites like Rover and Paw Shake, as in Paw Shake,
Okay, paw shake.
and those sites actually do checks on people. Like I know Rover does police checks because that's important. You don't want to have just some random person coming into your house. There's a lot of scams going on internationally now.
Hmm.
You want trustworthy and you want to make sure that they're going to be animal lovers. So you can, just like you can look at travel reviews for companies, you can look at reviews for sitters. So that was how I started actually. And then, like a lot of people, just word of mouth, their friends told their friends and their friends told their friends.
Right.
So that's a very good place for her to start. Paw Shake or Rover.
Thank you. So what you're saying is there's people out there that actually will come into your house and love up your animals and dogs and not rob you blind, right?
And then just and give her the peace of mind to travel, and then they'll do daily updates and send her photos of what's going on with her little
Oh,
dog.
that's so cool. Because she's always like, oh, she's always wanted to go to Scotland. I'm like, well, Mom, let's go. I'll go with you, whatever. And, well, the dogs, and it's like, oh yeah, the dogs. And I'm in Ecuador right now. Like, Mom, you should come down here. You want to go hop on a plane? Come down. Well, the dogs. So I know this was not the direction we were planning. I don't
That's
think we were
okay.
planning on going any direction with this conversation, but I think
Animals are
oh
such a huge part of my
yeah,
life, so I'm glad it went this direction.
it's very cool. So now if anybody has any questions or needs somebody to come watch their dog, Trisha's link will be in the show notes. You're gonna start getting inquiries on your website for dog sitting. But it's great for you because you can work remotely. I mean, I'm assuming you could work from anywhere because that's one of the nice things about this type of business. So you can go love up on other people's dogs, still keep your business running. It sounds like a pretty good fit, actually. I might even have to look into that. But
It's perfect.
Anyway, so what else? We've talked about a lot of I don't know, random things. We talked about a lot of important things, and I suspect we could probably just keep going and come back and record 3 or 4 more episodes. But I'm curious. What did I forget to ask you, or what should have I asked you that you want to make sure that our listeners kind of know about you, about Bike Hike, about just the way you see the world going? Anything important to you that you want to share with them before we wrap up?
Yeah, there's one thing that I always try to instill in our travelers. There's so many destinations right now that are experiencing overtourism, which is a really big deal. And this is how I've seen tourism change so much after the last 30 years is, the social media feeds that are saying this is the destination to go to right now. Usually once you've heard about a destination, it's too
Too late.
late.
Yeah.
And those destinations have now changed to they're not the authentic destinations anymore because they're like some of these destinations like Venice, 1,000 tourists per inhabitant. So be like, I really think that as much as I know that especially North Americans don't have a lot of vacation time and they want to go to those destinations that they've heard of in their lives, but like Slovenia would be a perfect example of this. We've operated Slovenia for 30 years. Nobody heard about Slovenia until 2019. And now that Slovenia is on the map, the prices are rising. There's supply demand issues, and the country is starting to change. So, really look at those places if you want that authentic experience. And there's not many places left like that anymore in the world, but there still are. Romania would be one. North Macedonia would be another. Bolivia, we talk about Bolivia a lot. It's still so raw. It is our most raw, authentic destination of all the destinations that we do. So,
Do you think? So I guess one of the challenges is there because we can plan things so easily online. We've kind of gotten away from the. I don't know. I'm curious. I think a lot of people kind of figure out where they want to go without a lot of input, just the input of Instagram or YouTube or whatever. And then maybe they're not coming to someone like you, but they're going to someone maybe saying, okay, I want to go to Venice. Venice just seems cool. I saw cool stuff on Instagram. Can you put together a trip to Venice for me? And then you've got the other type of traveler, maybe, or just in a different stage. I don't know that they're a different type of person, but they come and say, you know what, Trish, I just really want to go have a cool experience. I've got a couple months. My son, my 18-year-old son's, graduating from high school. I want to take him for 2 months in the summer and just go do something really cool. What do you think? And you're going to ask him a bunch of questions and help narrow it down. And you might say, how about Bolivia? So how do you encourage people, our listeners right now, anybody that's listening to this, how do we get them to reach out to you before they decide where they want to go?
yeah, well,
It's a tough question, I know.
it is a tough question, but travel has been my life, my
Mhm.
existence for, I hate to say it, but close to 40 years now.
You didn't have to
So,
say that. I'm with you.
and I still have a pulse, really deep pulse on all like with people all over the world. So I hear things, I see things, I travel a lot. So I feel like I have a good feel for the different kind of places and the needs of our travelers because this is what I've been doing for so long. And like, I'm just going to use Santorini as an example here because Santorini, I just came from Greece. I hadn't been to Greece for a few years. I always go back and check in on our destinations after a while just to hear how things are doing. Santorini is one of those places that's getting 7 cruise ships per day. So it means that your experience is going to be not, it might not be every day of the week, but when you're there, your experience is going to be like loads and loads of people. And if that's what you really want for your trip, just because Santorini's always been on your bucket list, I think you're going to be disappointed when you get there.
I wonder, when I heard you say that, it occurred to me that maybe a lot of travelers, people maybe that are listening to this show, or just people in general that think I want to go to Santorini, talk about overcrowding and overtourism doesn't mean anything to them because they've maybe never visited a place that was in the midst of that.
Good
So
point.
if you've never been to a small island with 7 big cruise ships coming in every day, that means nothing to hear me or you say it's crowded there, because you know what? They're like, I live in New York. I don't mind crowds. It's just, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything to them. Or they live in LA and the traffic's horrible. So they think, well, okay, that's normal. But it's a little different when you're on vacation and you're waiting in line to go into some place that somebody said you needed to go. It's a little different, right?
Yeah, and actually, in a lot of these destinations that are experiencing over tourism, there's protests going on right now. The locals don't want tourists. There's tourists go home. I know it's happening in Barcelona. I think it's happening in Portugal, in Venice. I heard in Amsterdam. So, and what's happening in some of these little places is that the local little cafes and coffee shops, butchers, whatever, those little pastry shops, whatever, they're closing. And what's opening is tacky tourist shops for the cruise ships. So the places are losing their local flavor, their local culture, and the locals are moving out because it's not a good place for them anymore. So it's not a real experience.
Hmm.
And you'll be walking through crowds where there's people holding up signs with the little flags to say, "Follow me, you're the blue group." And you're among a huge group of people, like you're just in
Hmm.
swarms of people. It's not probably what these people were expecting. So
Yeah, that
just picture this. If you in your town, for each one inhabitant, there's 1,000 tourists surrounding you. That would say everything.
it's interesting. I'm trying to put this into perspective, but I think it's true. I would rather go to a very busy place. This sounds weird. I'd rather go to a very busy place with very few tourists. I'm trying to balance what I'm saying. But I'd rather go to a place that's very busy with very few tourists than go to a place that's busy that are mostly tourists. It is a different thing. So an example would be Bangladesh. Think
Good point.
I'm drawing a blank on the name of the capital of Bangladesh, but it's like one of the most densely populated places in the world, and not a lot of tourists go there. I'm like, it's crowded. I know it's crowded. And when I go, I know it's going to be crowded. It's going to be elbow to elbow, but I don't care because that's part of the experience for me.
Absolutely.
That's the cultural part of it. But to go to Santorini and be elbow to elbow with a bunch of people that just got off the cruise ship for the day, and I'm not knocking cruise ships or people that go on cruise ships, but that's not part of the culture. That I'm not going to get anything culturally out of that. So there's a big difference between crowds of people and crowds of tourists. So if you want to find a crowd, go find a crowd of go to go to Bangladesh, go to maybe India, or go to or Medellin, Colombia, or any number of places where you can be around crowds, but it's you're still going to get the culture.
Absolutely. And you can still go to Greece, for example, but there's
Yeah.
so many islands to go to that are more authentic local islands than going to those really densely populated main cities that everybody's heard about and want to visit.
See,
And
I
I
would
know
call you. Yeah,
it's
I
a
would
hard
call you Trish.
sell.
Yeah, but they're going to have a much better experience because I would want to call you Trish and say, hey, I've always wanted to go to Greece. I don't know anything about Greece. What's that hidden gem that I'm going to go and I'm not, I know it sounds like I'm anti-tourist, but give me that spot where I can go and I'll be the only guy that looks like me, and they will be so excited to see me and happy to talk to me because they get to practice their English for the first time in several months. That's the place I want to go. And you can't find that on Instagram
No, you can't. And
just by
those are the
definition.
places that Bike Hike really tries to access. That's a big part of what we do, being in places like that.
Cool. Well, now it's a good time to mention that the link to Bike Hike is going to be right in the show notes. So if what we've been discussing and Trisha's story and her personality inspire you, and I trust that it has, click on a link. Even if you don't like to bike or hike, we've discussed that, I think, at length. Click on the link, see some of the stuff she has available, and reach out to her. So Trish, thank you so much. This was a really fun conversation. I appreciate it. And thanks for the bit on helping out my mom on the dogs. I'm going to make sure she hears this episode.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, Jason. It's been great.
Let's do it again soon. I'll chat with you soon. Thanks, Trish. Bye.
Okay, bye.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.